Well, welcome everyone. Thank you for joining our session here today, the last session of the day. So we're almost over and you're going to go back to your weekend. I just want to take a quick few seconds here to thank all the sponsors for Product Camp Austin. And I think you guys have been seeing these logos for a while. So I do want to take a second and thank everyone here. Quick introduction to me. I am Mo Hossain. I am the founder of DataUp. I actually started this business last year after working various years in different industries, including startup and media companies, etc. And in my company, DataUp, currently I help other businesses, mostly e-commerce businesses, but other online businesses as well, figure out what to do from an analytics perspective, as well as understand different technologies and kind of put them into the works that they've got going on. Obviously, every business has their different goals, and I help them understand how technology fits into that whole area. Today, we're going to be talking about some tools for behavioral analytics. This is mostly geared towards e-commerce businesses, but it doesn't have to be just e-commerce businesses. It could be any business or really any website that is online and is dependent on that as their main source of lead generation or anything like that. If you're interested in getting in touch with me, there's some information down here. I can share that at the end as well. Quick copyright information. This is copyrighted by DataUp. Disclaimers, all these information is really most of a technical expertise information, not really anything legal, because there's some things that could be taken as legal advice. I'll stop here and ask some question. If you are able to, feel free to put it in the chat or Slack, however you like. But I want to ask you guys about the last time you were shopping, or just any time you're shopping online. Think about the experience and share what kind of went through at that time. Did you have a good experience? Was it frustrating? Share that experience with us if you would. And you can unmute yourself if you like. That's all okay.
I had too many ads popping up. I was trying to buy an airline ticket.
Okay. Yeah, I've run into that myself quite a bit. And not just ads, pop-ups. There are a lot of pop-ups that come up. Thank you for sharing. Anyone else?
Doing some mobile shopping for Mother's Day, and
okay.
Really just the challenge of moving through mobile efforts to put in purchasing information.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, definitely. It's funny because a lot of our users are actually on mobile, but for whatever reason, we're still kind of in tune to thinking and designing for the web experience. So that is a really good point that you brought up, Michael. So at the end of the day, we just want to feel like this kid. We just want to be happy, right, when we're purchasing something. And I was asking one of my friends about this as well, and he was saying that he just bought a ring light on Amazon. It took literally seconds, just went online and kind of went to the website, searched for it, and it didn't take that long to purchase, right? So there's that sort of not perfect, but very close to being perfect. Like you need this thing, you go to the website or wherever you're trying to buy, and you purchase it really quickly. Versus this thing, this is not what you want. You don't want to be just frustrated with your day as you're trying to purchase. And us, as either product managers or folks that we have in the technical realm, we want to provide users a good experience. We don't want them to be frustrated, because the more frustrated they are, they're going to go to our competitors and buy from them, right? So that's not a good thing for anyone, really. So what are some of the things that can go wrong? This is kind of an interesting one. You could have lack of information or too much information, right? So in some cases, let's say you want to buy the ring light example, right? So if you go to the website and it just kind of bombards you with this 10-page document, you're not going to really look into that, because you're just trying to buy this one thing. You just want to know the very gist of it, and you want to go forward with your purchase, go and move on with your day, right? Slow site speed is a very common issue that happens for a lot of websites, unfortunately. Long and confusing checkout process. Checkout in itself is this whole area of confusion that just kind of, because there could be so many different pieces to it, it could be this one thing where it's too many pieces, too many systems or things that are kind of combined together, and just like it doesn't work all the time very well. So there are a lot of issues that could be happening within that checkout flow itself. Lack of payment. I had a client where we ran into this issue where they were only allowing people to pay with PayPal, And they're noticing some people just going to the checkout is like, oh, well, I don't want to pay with PayPal for whatever reason. Maybe they don't want to create an account, whatever. And they were leaving. So we actually implemented a credit card option, and that seemed to make the conversion rate go up, right? So there are a lot of examples. And we're going to talk about the tools that that we can use to figure out some of those things that are happening. There are a bunch of other examples. I won't go through all of these for time's sake. I kind of made a little joke here. It's like there are so many items that you can have on your list of things to fix or do, but these are really the top ones. So I want to take a quick pause here as well and ask, does anyone know whose logo this is? Which company this logo belongs to? Any guesses? All right, anyone recognize that one? So that one from before, this logo is from 1997. That's the original Amazon logo. Obviously, they've come a long way. At least myself, from my perspective, when I think of one of the best customer experience that you can have online is really through Amazon. There are a bunch of other websites, obviously, but they do a really, really good job. And they didn't do that overnight. It took a long time for them to be able to get to where they are today, right? It's almost 25 years. And they've done so many improvements in their system to do a lot of different things like easy navigation, searching options, drop-down menus. There are so many things. Like this is probably one of my favorites, the one-click order. Is like if you know the thing that you want, you just kind of push the button and buy it, and it comes to your door very quickly, right? So these are some of the things that Amazon has improved over time. From a trend perspective, this customer service experience, that is one of the biggest things that come up when we're talking about e-commerce, or really any sort of company that's trying to stand out. Because you think about, I don't want to bash any companies, but you think about some companies that have been around for so long, they almost seem like they don't care about their customer, right? But you look at some of the newer companies, they do really care. They want to make sure that our experience is really good. And so for us as companies, we need to kind of make sure that customer service and everything that we're doing, the experience online, the UX, everything just has to be just so smooth and good. And that's really the goal, right? So we want to figure out, how do we do that? And when we come to this, it's like, okay, so how can we become a little more like, for example, in my case, Amazon, or maybe some other companies that you really admire? How can we become a little bit more like that? There are a lot of different tools that we can use to figure out about the experience that the user is having, and what are they doing, how are they doing it, why potentially are they doing it, right? So I've kind of broken this up into 5 groups of tools that you can look into and use. One of them is quantitative tools. Then you have your qualitative tools, A/B testing, session replay, and heat map. We'll go through each one in a little bit. So quantitative is the first one, right? So this is when we're just literally just looking at numbers to figure out what happened in a certain experience. How can we improve that experience, right? It's basically about seeing the numbers and saying, okay, there are maybe 50,000 users that are doing this thing over this year, and they this is how they've experienced this site, or tried to purchase something, etc. Anytime you're looking at a data set that's at a larger volume, and you're looking at generally numbers, or maybe some of these graphs like pie charts and things like that, that would be what we would consider quantitative. It's numbers based, right? Numerical. So why does the quantitative matter? Well, it matters because you can figure out a lot of things for a lot of people quickly, right? So for example, if you use any quantitative tools, and that doesn't have to be just online based, right? It could be even something like your QuickBooks. Like if you're doing, like if you have a own business, or if you're in the finance department or something like that, looking at numbers, it helps you figure out, okay, well, how many products, for example, did we sold in this store and that store, and how did that all kind of come about? And so when we're talking about the online store, we look at a few different things here. I've kind of just listed a few just to kind of get our minds thinking about how do we kind of correlate this to whatever we're trying to do online. So the measuring customer engagement is a pretty common one, right? So we want to see how people are experiencing our website. It could be an app as well, right? How people are experiencing, for example, are they going from this page to that page? Are they clicking on this button? Are they going to the checkout? what are they doing exactly? We can figure that out based on events, based on other information that might be available from the website. And we measure that. And at the end of the day, when we measure it, we can help optimize that process. Whether it's, for example, like the checkout that's broken, right? Like if the checkout is broken, how can we optimize that? How can we make that experience better? Talking about e-commerce specifically, we obviously can analyze the online sales. We can figure out how many products did we sell, from a certain department or a certain, location. There could be a lot of different things that we might be interested in. This is all quantitative information. If you're not an e-commerce business, maybe you're trying to figure out where are my leads coming from, right? And how do I make decisions based on that? At the end of the day, ultimately, what we're trying to do is make sure that the conversion is increased. That's the goal. So unfortunately, we don't have a lot of time to go through each of these tools and talk about each of them and see what's good, what's bad, about them. But I kind of made a list of a few things for each of these sections to get us a clue about where can we even start in this process, right? Because of your business might have a lot of different pieces going into the business and how it's working together with other things, you might have a need to go into different tools. Google Analytics for quantitative analysis is going to be the most common. It's at some crazy number, like 70% of the world's website have Google Analytics put into it. So there's a lot of information that we can get from Google Analytics. There's a lot of information that we can find out. Obviously, things like where is the acquisition from? That's probably the most common one that I talk to with my clients about. It's like, where are your customers coming from? Like, is it Google ads? Is it Facebook ads? Is it maybe LinkedIn post that you posted one day? There could be a lot of different things that you can find out from a quantitative tool such as Google Analytics. I put free-ish because it is free at the end of the day, but there are obviously concerns about potentially these tech companies using our data or customer data, et cetera. As far as they say publicly anyway, they are not using any data from Google Analytics, but I guess we never know. If you are trying to figure out, okay, well, I don't want Google Analytics, I want something a little more maybe smaller company based or maybe privacy focused. In that case, you can try something like Matomo. That's a pretty good platform to be doing something similar, pretty much like Google Analytics. There's also Simple Analytics. These are both privacy focused. If you're kind of in an enterprise environment and you're looking at a lot of different things as far as your analytics goes, New Relic is a good option. I used to actually work for them before as an FYI. So New Relic, they have a lot of different application performance tools. So not only is it the web analytics, but you can get also application analytics and all that kind of stuff. Adobe Analytics is a really good one as well, depends on your need. If you are a smaller business or working with smaller businesses, Shopify or other platforms that is the tool that they're using online, for example, they have a lot of analytics built in already. So you may actually not even have to use Google Analytics or something similar to replace the Shopify Analytics. I would always recommend if you already have some analytics in your environment, just look at that and see how that is making an impact for you. If not, then you can always go to another complementary tool as well. So take a quick pause here. Any questions on quantitative tools? Sounds like we're okay. All right. So then when we get to that idea of, okay, I got maybe 100,000 users, 50,000 users, when we have so many numbers of people that we're trying to deal with in terms of our products or our companies that are potentially really big, it's hard to just look at one user or something else. That's why quantitative is important. But at the same time, when we're looking at quantitative information, it's a lot of numbers. When we're looking at numbers, we may miss out on contextual information that kind of answers the why. Why did someone do that? And then we have other tools to complement that quantitative aspect, right? So qualitative tools could be another one. Some people also refer to it as voice of customer or feedback tools. So in this case, you're essentially asking the customer, hey, you are potentially about to leave the website, right? This experience that you're having. Tell us something before you leave. And then this kind of gets into that odd phase of, okay, well, if I'm trying to leave, then someone asks me, are they gonna respond and leave some feedback? it's a kind of an interesting scenario, but some people will leave you feedback, even if you're having some problems on your website. So qualitative tools can kind of answer the whys for the quantitative information, where you're looking at so many different people doing so many different things, right? So these are more contextual. Most of the time we want to kind of use both of them together and say, okay, this is the quantitative information. I see 5,000 users, doing this thing or that flow or something like that. The qualitative kind of answers the other questions, like some feedback, like, okay, this is my experience, or this is how I was thinking about that. So this is kind of going into the answering the why, but it was kind of related to the feelings of people. So if I went onto a website and I'm trying to purchase something and it's not working, like that, the checkout process isn't working, then I may be frustrated. And if I'm frustrated, I may go to a competitor. That could be totally what happens. Or I may say, like, I really want to buy this product, and maybe I can't find it somewhere else. So I reach out to the people and I send them a message like, hey, what's going on with this checkout or something like that. That is essentially feedback when we're talking about this qualitative aspect. So we're getting the feelings of our customers and trying to understand why something happened. They can also report issues and errors, like I said. This can also tell us about why someone's not taking an action. This is kind of a broader idea, but basically the thought there is, if they're going through certain processes, but at the end of the day, they're not willing to do whatever your call to action is, then we can ask them, hey, why did you not purchase? Or maybe even, why did you purchase? You can learn a lot about what happened by asking the people that did purchase, actually. So it's kind of interesting from that perspective. There are a lot of tools that you can use, obviously, for any of these things here, but for my recommendation, I would start at Typeform if you are interested in getting some of that voice of customer survey type of information from your users. Typeform is a good one. You've probably already heard of it. This is a pretty common one in the market. Video Ask is actually a new tool that Typeform released recently. I think it was maybe like a year ago. This is an interesting idea. So Video Ask is basically someone coming through a video talking to you. So it would be like, hey, thanks for coming to this website. I wanted to ask you about your experience, right? So instead of it being just some text, like, hey, tell me about your experience, they're basically like, as a person, hello, I'm here, I'm asking you a question, and you can actually leave a video feedback if you like. So that's kind of a new tool that's coming into the market, and it's being quite interesting for a lot of businesses. I put some of the prices in there. If you're depending on what you are considering, those could be places to start and seeing if that's something that helps. There are other tools, like Qualtrics is a very, very well-known company. Usually enterprise companies will kind of go towards that, and there's a lot more options and different things that you can do in Qualtrics, which is great if you can get that tool. Hotjar and SurveyMonkey, Google Forms, those are other tools depending on your price point and different things that you're trying to do. You can always just have literally just a free Google Forms and just ask people. It's just send it out to people that are on your website and doing different things, like, hey, what was your experience? Or maybe someone purchased, send out an email to them. It's like, hey, thanks for purchasing. Just have a quick couple questions about this experience that you had, and you can get that feedback back from them. So that's qualitative. So we talked about quantitative when we're talking about a lot of numbers, qualitative when we're talking about the feedback that we want from our customers. Any questions? Okay, perfect. So A/B testing. So in this case, a lot of you, since you're in product, you probably already do so much of this, but sometimes we actually forget to do this, and it's kind of interesting because this is the thing that probably makes the biggest difference when we're trying to release something, right? That little icon or the little button that says XYZ things, right? That can make a big difference in how someone cognitively goes through that process. Like, okay, yes, I do want to buy this thing or not buy this thing. So A/B testing can be very, very interesting. You can test and find variation of things that convert. Obviously, on the website, there are a lot of things that can convert for people, like images, videos. You can have the actual the text, the copy of the web page or the product page. Those could be things that converts. But testing that to see, okay, well, which version is actually working better is really critical. Oops, excuse me. So in this case, we're looking at improving user engagement. We want to make sure that the experience that someone's having, is good. So whatever that we're putting in front of them is better. So it could be from a perspective of, I have these images, which one's really working for my ideal client there, right? Improved content, you can test different content. Let's say you're comparing two different videos and see which one is converting better, right? That's really good. Bounce rate, you can reduce that by figuring out what is working with your ideal clients, obviously, and ultimately you're going to get a higher conversion value, because the more you test at the end of the day, I don't need to tell you guys, the more you test, the better you'll have an idea of what is the end product look like and how do I make that even better potentially. At the end of the day, they're all meant to give you more clicks, sign up, and or sales, depending on the industry that you're in. So in this case, there are a lot of tools, again, that you can use. I will mention this one here, the Crazy Egg exam website. They actually have various tools that you can use in their website that kind of encompass a lot of these ideas. So obviously when we're going into these things, depending on how siloed your teams are and depending on what exactly you're trying to do from a testing perspective, A/B testing, analytics perspective, you might be better off choosing that one platform that is going to give you, 3 tools in one kind of thing, which Crazy Egg does have a few. Or you might say, okay, I need the very best of this exact one thing, for example, A/B testing, and I'm going to go with that one tool specifically. So Visual Website Optimizer is generally one of the best ones that I've come across. If you want a free tool, Google Optimize is a good one as well. Crazy Egg is usually sort of my triangle right there, is what I recommend for folks. Then we'll move forward to session replay. So this is kind of a newer idea. Some of you may have heard of it, some of you may have not. So session replay is kind of an interesting scenario where you can actually go look at an individual user's experience, and by look I mean actually like visualize it, see it as if it's a video. So in this case, what's going to happen is you're going to see that, okay, so this person got into the homepage. Maybe they scroll down and towards the bottom of the page, clicked on your call to action, and they went to either a checkout page if it's an e-commerce website, or maybe they're trying to fill out some other information for your lead gen, whatever you have going on. So it would be essentially that experience of going from one thing to another, and it's being recorded, almost recorded, like a video, and you can replay that later on to see what happened in that individual experience. Now, when we kind of go back to the quantitative idea, if we're looking at various tools or various people together, like like 50,000 people, even like 1,000 people, you can't really do that for session replay. But there could be other scenarios where you might have this need of figuring out or looking at this interesting idea. So one of the examples that I could come up with is the VIP customers that you have, right? So maybe you have really, really important customers in a certain region, right? Or they have certain attributes to them. Obviously, you may not know who these customers are unless you're tracking the user emails or something like that. But when you know that these people are very important people, then you can kind of look through those individual sessions to see, okay, what happened in their experience and make sure that they're okay. So there's another idea of potentially looking at it from a support perspective. If someone comes to you and is like, hey, I'm having this problem or something like that, then you can potentially look back to that experience. It doesn't always work. There are some caveats to that. Obviously, you need to know who the user is and what happened in that case. But in general, there are possibilities in that. Obviously, you can figure out the real user interaction, like exactly what they did, not just from a quantitative perspective, like, okay, someone did something potentially on the website, right? This is one user, you can follow them. Yes?
5-minute warning.
Awesome, thank you. There are a few other things you can figure out the flow of the users. You, of course, are providing that really good user experience by figuring out what happened to individual users. Recommended tools here would be, again, the Hotjar or Crazy Egg. Both of these tools I like, and they have sort of multiple features in one. So the A/B testing versus the recording, and the next one I'm going to talk about is heat map, and a few other tools down here. So the last one is heat map tools, and this is something also fairly recent, like the recording feature that's been out for a bit now, which is basically like looking at the website that you have, whether again it's WeCommerce or whatever else, and we're trying to figure out what did people do, whether it's a click, whether it's scroll. You know, there could be a lot of different activities that people are doing on our websites, and we want to see what they did through this visual component. This basically prevents us from looking at the numbers specifically. So this could be a really good complement if you don't like quantitative analytics. For example, you don't want to look at 100 users or 1,000 users did this one thing. You want to see those 1,000 users, where did they click, right? That's really all you care about. So this kind of helps you you do that. Obviously, you get instant overview performance just because you're looking at the entire page and you see where the hot zone is, which basically means where people are looking at information the most, versus the bottom of the website is always the cold zone because not as many people go to the bottom of it, right? So that's one. And this is a visual approach versus looking at the data, the numbers. And this really complements other tools. You can't really go just with this idea and just be like, okay, I'm all good. You couldn't need other tools there for you. This really ultimately helps us better understand our users. Again, tools that I would recommend are Hotjar. I use them myself for a while. Crazy Egg is also a good option, and a few other tools down here that you can jot down real quick. So I know we have a few more minutes here. That's pretty much it. Hopefully, it kind of gave you some interest into figuring out what might be interesting for you. And if you are interested in talking more about those different tools, I'd be happy to chat about it either in the chat, or you can, of course, shoot me an email, and I'd be happy to chat there. And again, thank you for the sponsors that were helping us create this event. I have a couple minutes here, I think. Is that right, Michael?
Yep, two minutes officially.
Okay, perfect. So if anyone has any questions or different things that they're trying to look at, stuff like that, I would be happy to chat a little bit now. Looking at the chat here. Okay, yeah, that doesn't, yeah, it looks like no questions in the chat. Any questions from the audience? All right, I think we are okay then. Do you guys have any comments? Anything else you want to share here? Fairly quiet room.
Yeah, I guess everybody is feeling the end of the
Yeah,
day.
it's been a long day already, but well, it's going to be the official weekend soon, so that's good.
Okay, so thank you, Mo, for your presentation. I hope we all learned something useful out of it. I will remind you that the session feedback voting links were posted in chat and in Slack. Please make sure to fill that out. It's always important to give our speakers feedback.